future in what we're going to do. I feel an enviable task of trying to get anywhere near beating the traffic light system here, but I've got about 6 months worth of work and a 160-page of dense Word document to communicate in the next 20 minutes. So I'm going to rattle at pace and I'll just explain where we are in our process within Fáilte Ireland at the moment, because I'm sure there's going to be quite a few things here that many people in the room will have questions on. I'm not going to get a chance to engage in fully today, but where we're at is over the last 6 months, we've been trying to develop a new vision, and we're coming to the end of our current strategic cycle within Fáilte Ireland under the government policy of tourism policy, of people, place and policy. And we're coming to the end of our current cycle, which ends in 2027, at the end of this year, and we're now in the process of trying to develop a new 5-year strategy for going forward. But we said, look, let's take a pause and stop. Before we develop a 3 or a 5-year strategy, we need to look at what a 10-year vision might look like, because a lot of what we do is in the infrastructure game, a lot of what we do is in the long-term game, and if we focus on a 3 to 5 year period, we'll miss some of the bigger things that we need to get at. So we want to look at a 10-year thing. We want to start working on the things now that in 5 years' time will only be coming to fruition. So we have to take that longer view. So we're now in the process of just beginning a consultation and period, again, kind of a sneak preview of what's going to be coming out in a week or two to various stakeholders for consultation. And then over between now and February or March of next year, we're going to be in that consultation mode before anything is finalised and before we can submit a formal proposal to the department for consideration. So that's kind of where we are in our cycle. Our working title is Tourism for a Nation for Tourism. And I suppose the thought of that was that tourism is not just for the tourism industry. There are 225,000 people employed in tourism. Tourism contributes 1.9 billion euros to the Exchequer in terms of revenue, which benefits everyone in Ireland. And we very much in Fáilte Ireland, we would say, look, our shareholders, as it were, are not the tourism industry. Our shareholders are all of the Irish taxpayers, because they're the people that pay our salaries, that give us the money to spend to help grow tourism, and we want to return that for the entire country. And the tourism industry and all the tourism stakeholders are critical partners and the key frontline people that we can support and facilitate in doing that, but effectively it is for the whole country. And the second part of that title, A Nation for Tourism, is that crystal clear that we can't succeed in tourism if it's left to the tourism industry. We need all of the elements from what does the state do with all these land and building assets that are held by non-tourism bodies, right down to what is the greeting on the street when somebody asks for directions when their Google Maps isn't working on their phone. What's that greeting on the street? So it's everyone is involved. So this idea of saying that in terms of we need everyone, and we need to marshal all of the resources, and we need to not just kind of play our own instrument, but we need to conduct a choir of the entire island in order to achieve our full tourism potential. So that's kind of what's behind our working title. We've got strong foundations for growth. Mark has been through this, so I'm not going to dwell on it. But really good progress over the last 5 years, in particular in terms of economic contribution, in terms of revenue, in terms of tax growth, in terms of employment growth and visitor numbers. So we've got very good foundations for growth. Just a few of the things, I suppose, that some of the highlights that Fáilte Ireland have contributed to that, and I can claim no credit for any of this, not having been here. But obviously our experienced brands of the Wild Atlantic Way, Ireland's HDs, Dublin, a breath of fresh air, significant investment in visitor attractions and improving those numbers of visitor attractions. In recent years, we've worked very closely with Tourism Ireland and all of our industry partners in business development supports and helping Irish industry get ready and get out into international markets, whether it's leisure, meeting incentive, space, golf, etc. Our enterprise supports quality and standards, and of course back in 2013 the gathering. So lots of things and lots of work going on, I suppose, from all parties in order to deliver that growth. Here are just some of the things that Fáilte did for it. In terms of carrying on, we're looking to growth for the future, and we're looking to measure growth in, the top line number is revenue, is revenue contribution, because that's what everything else flows from, and that's what makes the economic contribution. And obviously, international visitors, domestic visitors, and from that revenue you'll have employment growth, and from that you'll have tax revenue, which will help every other sector and every nation, every citizen of the nation. So in terms of, we think, in terms of Mark has talked about, there are challenges, but there are tremendous opportunities for growth. If you look at the global trends of things like people are living longer, healthier lives, people have got more disposable income, there's an increased interest in travel, and also massively increased ease and cost and speed of travel. Also, if you look at Ireland's opportunity, in terms of the interest level in our major markets, if you look across the kind of major markets, the ones that the Tourism Ireland focus on, we have 75% of people who are expressing an interest in travelling to Ireland. When you look at our market share in those markets, even with that great growth we've had, we're still only 1 to 2%. Some markets a bit less than 1, some markets a bit more than 2, but we've still got a huge kind of potential in those markets to tap into that interest and grow our market share. And also, as Mark was referring to as well, the massive untapped opportunity in terms of Asia and the significant growth and other areas like the Gulf States and maybe something down the road, India, etc. So there's lots of big markets where we haven't even scratched the surface of yet. So we think all of that says there is tremendous growth potential. And we've looked at just some of these are not new targets, they're not new, right? These are just some illustrative examples of the impact of some growth if we could get there. If we grew by about 3.5% per annum, that's not over the next 10 years, that's not an easy thing to do. That's about double the Northern European average. And we can look at kind of, great, we've had 6% this year, 7%, but if we maintain that, and the one thing you know about that kind of growth is it won't be, as Mark said, it won't be smooth, it won't be the same every year, there'll be ups and downs, etc. But if we could do 3.5% every year, on average per year over the next 10 years, then this is the scale of impact that it could have in terms of significant economic growth, over 100,000 extra jobs in tourism in the country, over an extra $1 billion in tax take per annum of what it would contribute. That's kind of like that. Plus, that's about the cost of the National Children's Hospital. So every year, tourism could deliver to the Exchequer enough money to build a National Children's Hospital extra every year on top of what it was if we could achieve these kind of growth targets. So significant economic impact that can come. We did some work and some thinking with both Caleb and the research team in Fáilte, Ireland, along with Mark and his team in Tourism Ireland. And if we could achieve those kind of growths, what would be the market mix that they might come from? Because people coming from different markets have different needs. And when we're thinking about designing the visitor experience and working with industry to help get them ready, we've got to think about what's the profile of these visitors going to be like, so we can make sure that we're meeting the needs of those. And as you see, these are the revenue numbers, and as you can see, the trend that Mark so eloquently highlighted continues on with, we're seeing a reduction in percentage terms on overall terms, in percentage terms of Britain, mainland Europe, we think will broadly stay the same share, that would still be significant growth. And then we'd see the faster than average growth from the likes of North America and the other long-haul markets. So that's just a snapshot of where we think that growth, and that shows that continuing journey towards market diversification would continue forward. But I suppose in terms of, it's not all roses, there are requirements and there are risks. If we're to get that kind of growth, we do need to continue to grow air and sea access, particularly air access. And that's around seats coming in, but it's also the required infrastructure on the ground in terms of runways and terminals, etc., and managing the regional spread of that and the congestion, etc. So we do need to grow our capacity there. Accommodation, we're all well aware of the pinch points we have in accommodation capacity, and accommodation is an area that we need to grow. Those kind of growth rates would probably require a growth in total tourism bed stock in the country by about 50% over the next 10 years. That would take us from about 200,000 current tourism beds in the island to about 300,000 over the next 10 years. That's the kind of accommodation capacity increase we need if we were to achieve those kind of growth rates. Attractions and activities, Mark kind of highlighted some of the capacity pinch points beginning to emerge there. We do need to grow capacity there as well, and of course required infrastructure. I don't think all of the road problems are sorted, Mark. I don't know. I've certainly sat outside the there for longer than I want to on occasion. And even here in Killarney during the height of the season, there's sometimes quite a bit longer in traffic than you'd like to. So, I think we do have to keep building out that infrastructure and keep developing that. Then, of course, the risks. Brexit. So we're not going to launch onto. We still are quite concentrated. Although the market diversification has happened is great, we need to keep going. We're still quite concentrated in terms of we're still kind of about 19-20% reliant on domestic visitors. We're still, we're still at revenue terms, reliant on a relatively small number of major markets. So the more diversified we can make that mix, the better we're able to withstand if there's a problem with visitors from one market. It won't affect us as badly if that's a smaller share of the overall market. So we've got to keep that market diversification going. US volatility, we've seen a fantastic growth, and this year in particular, how the US has saved us from, generally speaking, from the downside of Brexit. But as we all know, that can turn off like a tap. If something happens, it can just shut down very quickly, very dramatically. So that is a risk we need to manage, and the only way to manage that risk is to grow other places as fast as we can, so that its impact is less as a share of the overall business that's happened. Value for money challenges and supply lagging demand in terms of they're some of the other challenges. The framework that we look at when we're looking at growth is through the international best practice model of VICE. We've got to look at everything through the lens of the visitor, industry, community, environment, and that's kind of just the framework we apply to everything we look at, and we look at it through how is it going to impact and what are the implications for all four of those elements. So coming on then in terms of we look beyond our growth goals, we then look into, okay, what's our strategic growth model? And it's all rooted in regionality and seasonality. And in terms of, and it's all about that sense of, that's a lens we're going to look at everything through, and I'll talk a little bit more about those. This is a map, I'm sure it's been around a while, many people have kind of seen it, maybe it might be new to some people, but it's the economic activity of tourism. Sorry, I'm coming apart here. It's the economic activity of tourism across the geography of Ireland, and about 70% of the tourism activity happens in about 30% of the land mass. So that's where things kind of currently stand. And we're looking at, okay, well, what do we want that to look like in 10 years' time? And we've added our yellow circles, and these are fairly roughly drawn. This is all draft. I can see this one is going to be, people will pour over a little bit. But if we get those kind of growth rates I spoke about earlier, everywhere will grow. There will be growth in tourism for everywhere. What we're just pulling out here is on the basis of where do we think can grow faster than the national average? Where do we think we can get even more growth than the national average? Everywhere will grow, but and it's not just about saying, oh, we're only going to focus on where the yellow circles are, because we absolutely need to keep growing the likes of Killarney, we need to keep growing the likes of Galway, we need to keep growing the likes of Dublin. But we think that there is potential for faster than national growth because of a combination of what's the natural landscape that's there, what's the historical assets that's there, what are the transport access that's maybe not being utilised, where's the capacity and infrastructure, capacity and accommodation, etc. So these are the areas where we think that, in terms of that we can achieve higher and faster growth rate and develop out even more. On seasonality, Mark says, so the graph hasn't changed very much. So the blue line is the current spread of visitors by month, and the red line is what we'd like that to be in about 10 years' time, and what we think that if we work, we can do. Fiona's going to talk about a little while about some of the initiatives that shows that we can achieve that. So that shows in terms of really want to try and grow everywhere, but grow those shoulder seasons a bit more. There is a challenge in that because if we look at this line, the blue line of this is the UK visitors, and that's the flattest line of all. The red line is the US visitors, and as you can see, the profile of the market changes from less UK to more US. It's going to make that shoulder season challenge a bit more. a bit more difficult to achieve. So I just think we've got to work harder at that shoulder seasons with those long haul markets, particularly the US, to get those visitors in March and April and have them stay in October, November. A critical element then is our overall brand architecture. We're all familiar with Wild Atlantic Way, Ireland's ancient east, Dublin, a breath of fresh air. We are developing a new Midlands brand at the moment. We think we have the money in the budget to start activating it next year. We're still getting full clarity on that. But we're close to finalising our proposition, etc. around that. I'll talk about it in a moment. And then also from a business tourism point of view, the Meet in Ireland brand is a critical brand. And when we look at those brands, we look at this kind of brand architecture, where we look at the regional, at our big regional experience brands and how they fit, and then what goes in underneath them. And it's not to say that there isn't great history on the Wild Atlantic Way. There's some fantastic historical product in the Wild Atlantic Way. It's not to say that there isn't great scenery or great activities in Ireland's ancient east. I'm a Wexford man, there's absolutely fabulous beaches down in Wexford, and there's fabulous places to go for walks and all that sort of stuff. It's not the Wild Atlantic Way, but it's there. So we've got to be able to, as well as do our regional experience brands, we've got to be able to do those kind of activity level propositions across the country. But coming back to our regional experience brands, we've got to, when we were faced with, say, defining the Midlands brand, I said, right, we can't just define it, we can't just start work on a Midlands brand without understanding what the geography is. And you can't understand the geography of one region without understanding the geography of all the regions. Now, apologies, good old Ireland has put on a few pounds on the PowerPoint slide here. But this has been a map that's been poured over long and hard, and we've engaged with local stakeholders in various areas around it. But we've now kind of said, right, this is how the country's going to divide. This is where geography lines are going to be. There's a few overlap areas between the Midlands and Ireland's ancient east because there's great historical product, but we also want the east bank of the Shannon to be in the Midlands brand. But there's some great historical product like Clonmacnoise there, so it needs to be in Ireland's ancient east, etc. Importantly also, and probably for this neck of the woods in particular, is, you know, we've in this blue area here, it's kind of a new, it's not a new brand, it's kind of a new definition of a region that we're calling the Wild Atlantic Way region. And we're still working through exactly what that will mean, but effectively we're saying that businesses in that blue area, we really see how they can best grow their businesses by leveraging the Wild Atlantic Way. And we'll be doing things like gateway towns, loop drives, we'll be enabling businesses in those areas to use the fact that they are in the Wild Atlantic Way region. You know, we can't have someone who's located, 50 kilometres from the shore in kind of North Cork saying we're on the Wild Atlantic Way, because you disappoint visitors like that. But they can say we're in the Wild Atlantic Way region, and because they're en route to it, they're near enough for international visitors who are used to travelling hours and hours to get places. So, in terms of that. There's certainly that's how the businesses in that blue area can best develop the name. This is a chart. Anyone who's involved in applying for grants in Fáilte Ireland, be it festivals or capital grants or anything like that, get used to this methodology, get used to this kind of chart, because it's going to be around a while. This is a new tool we've just brought in, where effectively we look at the vertical axis on this. We look at the main reason to travel. And that is, so the higher up something is in this, it says, I will go there specifically for that. The horizontal axis is how many people are interested in visiting something. So if you're in the top right-hand corner, it says lots of people are interested in coming to see you, and also it's a main reason to travel, so I'll go there specifically for it. We've done this research with 20,000 people across our major markets and domestically, so a massive piece of research. We put 94 different concepts and ideas into this research, and we're going to be using it to evaluate, be it any new investment ideas going forward as to where we should put our money. So it's kind of taking it, do we think it's a good idea or not? No, we're going to ask the customer, and we're going to see what it works. So if you're in the bottom left-hand corner, you absolutely don't want to be there. If you're in the top left-hand corner, you've got something that a small number of people are quite interested in. So you need to scale your investment to reflect that it's a relatively niche idea, but you will get a small number of people there. The bottom right-hand corner is, if I'm in the area, I'll go and see it, but I'm not going to go to the area specifically to see it. our experienced brands smack right up there in the top right-hand corner, and up there in benchmarks like the Great Ocean Road in Australia and places like that are up in that benchmark. So really, really strong, and we've got very good depth. There's one point up there that might catch your picture, a bit of attention, which is the New Midlands brand, active in nature. It's not the name of the brand, it's the proposition. It's going to be about active in nature for the Midlands. And that scores really well in that area. Now, importantly, when we wrote it on the basis of what could the Midlands look like with significant capital investment. So with the Bear at Breffni Way walked out, with the Shannon fully exploited, etc. So we wanted to test the potential of the area, not the current reality of the area, because we want to invest behind potential. So the active in nature proposition for the Midlands scores really well, but it scores really well only when the product is there to meet it, and it will require many years and many millions to build that product, that space, but it does have good potential, and that's the important good long-term use for it. Going beyond the brand architecture, and I'm kind of on red here, so I'm not going to get into these in too much detail, but there are 6 what we call strategic imperatives, and these are the 6 things that we believe as a total country that we need to do in order to grow our tourism business. And the chain will be as weak as the weakest link. So if we don't do any one of these 6, then we will fall down. We've got to do all 6 brilliantly. We've got to do all 6 good. The first one is about building brilliant visitor experiences, and that's making sure that we continue to. It's a really competitive place. And if you look what international countries are doing, they're investing huge amounts of money in building new and better visitor experiences all the time. We've got to keep building brilliant visitor experiences and keep developing those. The second is helping to support the development of a world-class industry. We have a fantastic industry here in Ireland, and I keep hearing that from international buyers, etc. But we need to keep developing that, and we need to keep upping our game in that space. So supporting the development of a world-class industry is the second of those. The third one, which is the first 3 if you like on the supply side, the third one is about a visitor-centric infrastructure and community. So all those things that aren't necessarily core to tourism, but we need to have them in place. So we need the right public transport system, we need the right roads, we need the right legislation around walkers' access, so that people like Olivia and loads of other people can get out and enjoy the countryside, and we need the right kind of paths and legislation that supports that sort of stuff. On the next 3 are really on the demand side, which is about attracting overseas visitors, leisure visitors, which we obviously is what Tourism Ireland are all about, and we work very closely with them on it. Domestic, increasing the number of domestic trips. As I said, this is still about 20% and will still be roughly about 20% of the pie going forward in terms of revenue. And the third one is international business and events visitors. They're really the 6 strategic imperatives. We've then got into, and I won't go through these, but we've got into a load of detail in each of those. So that's the graph you've seen before, where we're plotting some of our visitor experiences on it. This is just some targets we have around how we're going to build those visitors and what we want to get to in terms of looking 10 years out, how many different attractions we want to have hitting over 1 million visitors, etc. One I just want to focus on for a moment is this area of activities, because Mark so brilliantly set it up for me in terms of, this is an area that is just growing massively, and there's massive potential, and we're still not striking the stars. The Lake District in the UK has 18 million visitors a year. 18 million. That's twice the number of the entire Wild Atlantic Way in the Lake District in the UK. And Wicklow National Park and the National Park here in Killarney are very similar products. Not as big, obviously, and not as close to such metropolitan areas, but, relative to the likes of the Lake District, we're empty. So this is an area that we think there is massive potential on. We have fantastic product that we're not yet opening up and access. So walking and hiking, cycling are the top 2. Water sports, adventure hubs, golf and angling. So tying right into the numbers that Mark was showing earlier. And to support the development of that, we have a new activities development team. And someone that many of you know here in the audience know, Fiona Monaghan, after doing a number of excellent years' work on the Wild Atlantic Way, I'm delighted to say, is going to be heading up that new activities development team for us. As I was just saying to Fiona this morning, easy job for you, Fiona. Your job now is to turn Ireland into Europe's playground, outdoor playground. So, I'd like to thank Fiona for taking that on, congratulate her and thank her for all the work that she's done on the Wild Atlantic Way, along with her team of here, Josephine and Declan and all the guys. And now Lily's going to take the thing. And it's not right. I'm colourblind. Yeah, so that was one area I was going to focus on. I'm going to go right to the very end. See how quick I'm doing all this stuff. See, there's loads of great work. Really importantly, we need national coordination structures, and we're developing through those in terms of through our regions, right from a national level, regional level, and local level, in order to coordinate and develop and collaborate like we need to in a structured way to achieve what we need to achieve in tourism. And finally, none of this comes without a cost. Currently, over the next 10 years, if we continue to invest as a state, as we have been, we'll invest about €1 billion over the next 10 years at the current rates of investment. Work that Niall and Mark and the team in Tourism Ireland have done, and we've done in Fáilte Ireland, looks like we think that needs to be about 2 billion over the next 10 years instead of 1 billion over the next 10 years. But we believe that can deliver an exchequer return of roughly an extra 5 billion over the next 10 years, which will mean it'll be an investment that will well pay out in terms of what it will deliver back for the government. So, in terms of that's kind of the scale. A lot of that money is in capital, as well as some increasing international marketing, increasing industry development. But there's a big chunk of it in capital. So that's the summary of everything on one page. I'm not going to dwell on that. And that's just kind of a very quick outline of our strategy our vision from which we're going to develop our strategy in the future. Sorry for overrunning. Thank you for your time.